Okay, now I wanted to call up David Morley.
You complained your introduction was short. Good evening, my name is David Morley and I'm a board member of Makor Bracha, Center City Synagogue in Philadelphia. Rabbi Hirsch's leadership of our community is inspiring in countless ways, not the least of which is his connection to Israel. We cheered for him when he raced in the Jerusalem Marathon in support of Kav Noar, an organization that supports at-risk Israeli families, and we mourned with him when his cousin, Major Dudi Zohar, died serving in the Israeli Air Force. It has been my privilege to know Rabbi Hirsch for almost a decade, not only as my rabbi, but also as my friend. Even in the face of controversy, he never shies away from expressing devotion to Israel and encouraging the Makor Bracha community and all people to do so as well. It is now my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Hirsch, who will be receiving a well-deserved honor, the ZOA's Garden of Israel Award.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this wonderful honor. I'm humbled that I was even considered to receive this award, and honestly, I originally felt undeserving. But when Steve graciously asked me about accepting, he said one of the reasons he thought of me was because there were not many rabbis around that he considered to be pro-Israel. I know that he has high standards, and I take that as a great compliment. But I knew then that I had to stand up for Israel. I couldn't say no to that kind of request from Steve and ZOA, so here I am. ZOA is a vitally important organization, particularly at this critical time for the state of Israel, when Israel is being attacked from all directions, by enemies that want to destroy us by military means, as well as political foes like the BDS movement and its army of supporters. When I gave the benediction at the ZOA Gala 2 years ago, I spoke about my grandmother and my step-grandmother, both of whom survived Auschwitz along with my grandfather. My other two grandparents on my father's side left Poland before the war, but most of their families were wiped out in the Holocaust. Growing up hearing them talk about the importance of Israel and how they appreciate the freedoms granted to them in the United States and Israel after the war made a tremendous impression on me about the vital importance of the survival and prosperity of the state of Israel, the United States, and the relationship between these two great countries. Without them, God forbid, my grandparents would basically have nowhere else to go. 4 of them emigrated to America, where they found a place that welcomed Jews and gave them freedom of religion and economic opportunity. My step-grandmother found refuge in Israel, where she had the same freedoms, was able to witness and play a significant role in building the Jewish state. I was also fortunate to spend 4 years studying yeshiva in Jerusalem. One of my favorite anecdotes from those days related to a story about an experience I had while studying at Yeshivat Hotel in the old city of Jerusalem, where the dean of the overseas program, Rabbi Aaron Bina, had a policy to give the American students a half day off each year on Thanksgiving. 2 Israeli students complained to Rabbi Eliezer Hirsch, the chief rabbi of the old city at the time, and demanded that he put an end to this practice. So Rabbi Eliezer approached Rabbi Bina and asked him, what is this Thanksgiving holiday all about? Rabbi Bina explained that Thanksgiving is a day when Americans gather with family and friends to thank God for giving them America. After thinking about it for a few seconds, Rabbi Nebenzahl replied, well then, I think it would be fitting for the Israeli students to celebrate as well, because without America, Israel would not exist. I often tell this story to my congregants because I think it aptly expresses the bond between the United States and Israel, and why we all need the ZOA to maintain and strengthen that connection. I believe it is particularly important to convey this message to the next generation, and I feel a personal responsibility to do so within my congregation, which is primarily comprised of young Jewish adults. They are all exposed daily to the widespread anti-Israel sentiment that we encounter in Philadelphia, throughout the United States and the world. And it is imperative that we have ambassadors from the next generation who combat that negative influence. Sadly, our younger Jewish generation does not always comprehend how important Israel is. They don't have that connection to the Holocaust that we in this room have, nor that they have the in-depth background to rebut the popular but terribly specious notion that someone can be anti-Israel without being anti-Semitic. They need to realize that for Jews in America, there is one issue which should take top priority in elections. The candidate must be pro-Israel. They need to acknowledge that when we stand by Israel, we support freedom and democracy. Because Israel is surrounded by countries who persecute anyone who believes differently from them, including our Palestinian neighbors. And they need to learn that when the United Nations votes to single out Israel for condemnation, the nations of the world are turning a blind eye to the egregious violations of international law which take place around the globe in order to paint Israel in a bad light. And most of all, our younger generation needs the humility to realize that we cannot judge Israel for being vigilant about security, when we are blessed to make our homes in the safe haven of America, where our families are rarely exposed to the danger that is routine in Israeli life. None of us would deny that we should be concerned over the recent increase in anti-Semitic acts here in the United States. But at the same time, our country, the United States of America, is still the greatest democracy that ever existed. And Jews live here with freedoms we never before had in our history. We must never take any of these things for granted. Next week, we will celebrate Rosh Hashanah. And the very next day, we will observe an obscure and somber day of fasting called Tzom Gedalia, the Fast of Gedalia. The Fast of Gedalia recalls an event that occurred after the first Jerusalem temple had been set aflame by the Babylonians. We were given one last chance to save Israel and prevent our exile from the land before, in the words of Maimonides, the last ember of hope flickered out. We failed, and Tzom Gedalia commemorates this failure, which stemmed from the same inadequacy as Tisha B'Av, the collective Jewish day of mourning for the destruction of Jerusalem and our subsequent exiles from Israel. Our grave mistake was that we took the land of Israel and that ancient state of Israel for granted. The Talmud tells us in the Tractate Gittin, Masechta Gittin, Daf Nun Hey Amud Bet, that the central problem regarding these failures was that we didn't take the words of King David seriously. Ashrei Adam Mefachei Tamid. A successful person is continually concerned that they will lose that which is precious to them. Nothing should have been more precious to us than the land and the state of Israel at the time, and nothing should be more precious to us now. Back then, we took the security of Israel for granted. This lesson must continue to resonate with us today. We must appreciate the gift that is Israel and never take for granted the significance of its relationship with its great ally, the United States of America. May God bless the state of Israel, the United States of America, and ZOA. May we have a happy and sweet new year ahead, a year in which we recommit ourselves to making Israel and their bond with the United States our top priority. Thank you so much.